Welcome to the Gorgon Readings. A note of warning. Today's episode includes graphic and explicit content intended for a mature audience. Please be advised. We will be looking at the 5th chapter of Samurai Executioner, Volume 1, a manga written by Kazuo Koike and with art by Gozeki Kojima. This will be the last chapter of the first volume we will be covering. Please relax and enjoy. The 5th, Asaji. The woman kneels quietly to the side as the futile screams begging for their life is cut short by the swing of the sword. The head falls. The executioner cleans his blade. The woman remains quiet. As the body is wrapped and taken by the servants, the woman retrieves the head and washes it. She then wraps the head in cloth and hands it to servants who package it. She cleans the execution mound and blood pit, the baskets used, and is then carried back to her home in a palanquin. Whereas the male prisoners are taken through the front gate and inspected by the master of the guard, the female prisoners are taken to the western cell block. There, the female caretakers who work on alternating days assisted all their needs from inspections to menstruation. These caretakers were considered less than human. These women, the caretakers, were called Asaji. Back in the men's jail, they are packed tightly, all coping in various ways to their plight, except for the one called Denzo, who is an absolute mess. The warden sends him a puff of tobacco. This is legal, but like all things with money, it can be provided. And his folks have provided quite a bit of it. But his time is up. He is next on the list of the executioner. What would he like? Food? Alcohol? He has earned it with what he's provided. Denzo asks for a woman. After a quick bribe, the Asaji is approached. She agrees on one condition. She must speak to the Asaimon. The person doing the bribe agrees. He does not seem trustworthy. She fulfills her part of the bargain. The men watch. It is humiliating, but she endures. Because the Asaji are separate from the rest of society, she bathes in a spring well known as the Well of Pollution. As she does, she seems pleased. She has suffered a lot for the chance to talk to the Asaimon. But now, she's closer to her goal than ever. But she is watched by the man that bribed her. He approaches her while she's still nude. He tells her he hasn't had time for brothels and asks if she is interested. She thinks about it. This might improve her odds. But as she lays down, he mocks her. He would never lay with an Asaji. Unclean. She must use her mouth and hands And as she does, she remembers. It is her wedding day. She is happy. It is her wedding night. She is excited. Right up until the men break in. They kill her husband. They force themselves on her. And they force her to do the same. When she finishes, she reminds him of her request. She then bathes, singing. She is much closer to her goal. She resumes her role. On the day the ronin Saisho Shinkuro is brought in, the Asaji is hidden at the gate. She fantasizes about his head being decapitated by the Asaimon. She meets her briber again. She reminds him of their deal. But this is when he confesses he never intended to keep his end of the bargain. She begs, but he spurns her, even kicks her. But the Asaimon is in the vicinity. He hears his name being spoken. He sits down with her and the guard, who was kicking her. He tells her to speak. She requests to wash the ronin Saisho Shinkuro's head after he is executed. But only men handle men, exclaims the guard. This is unheard of. The Asaimon looks at her and asks why. And she tells him. He killed her husband on her wedding night. He took her, sold her on the street, dragged her from place to place, dragged her down with him as he became ever more depraved. She has dreamt of this day. This is all she's ever wanted. The Asaimon asks for water. The closest well is the well of pollution. The guard gasps. This will taint. She fetches the water, gives it to the Asaimon, and he drinks. As he finishes, he says that water quenches as well as it cleanses. All men are created equal in death. One should never wash a head in hate. He will allow her to wash his head. But she must remember this. For this, she thanks him. The ronin Saisho Shinkuro is walked into the execution yard. He refuses a face covering. He does not fear death. The guard wonders if he might change his opinion once he's seen death up close. The Asaimon, surrounded by government officials, is in the execution yard. The ronin Saisho Shinkuro walks to him, kneels by himself. He begins to say his final words, but as he speaks in the yard, he sees a face. It seems familiar. Where has he seen her before? He recognizes her. Confused, terrified. What is she doing here? The Asaimon says she is here to wash his head. His head. No. No, the panic. The men hold him. Anything but that. Anyone but her. Please. He begs for forgiveness. He implores. The Asaimon completes the cut. The Asaji washes the head of the ronin Saisho Shinkuro. As she sees his expression, she cleanses his fear, cleanses the blood, cleanses the hate, and she cries. The Asaimon watches. That night, there is a body found hanging from the rope at the well of pollution. It is a woman's body. There will be a need for a new Asaji come the morning. This is the end of the first volume of The Samurai Executioner. I hope you enjoyed it. Please tune in next week when we switch to a new series. As always, we'll be aiming for a weekly format and are still working on our social media platforms, so please be patient. Until these are up and running, please enjoy the content and see you next time.